Alright everyone, how to grow muscle as fast as possible and get in monster shape. I'm going to give you the exact formula that I've learned over the years to grow consistent muscle, no matter how much you feel like you've hit a plateau or a standstill. If you understand these principles, you can continually grow muscle no matter what. And it's really important to understand that this is the foundation of any sort of muscle growth. So if you can get this down really early and understand every single concept, which I'm about to explain really thoroughly now, you will understand how to grow consistent muscle, and you will never have a problem where you hit standstills where the weight doesn't go up, you don't grow in certain areas, and you will consistently reach your goals and get in killer shape. So let's talk about the initial formula and what you need to do to grow muscle. So there are three things that matter. Number one is training intensity. This is the most important. So you need to be focusing on stimulating enough growth, and that comes from lifting very heavy and pushing the limits every single week. So muscle growth will not take place unless your training intensity is at the level it needs to be. So that's really important. That's number one. However, you can't just have that in place. Every single piece of the puzzle is really important, maybe equally as important as each other, but one cannot be facilitated without the other. So for that reason, if your training intensity is at 100%, and your nutrition is not there, you'll find it hard to grow muscle. So the next point is that we need to make sure that we are fueling our body with the right nutrients and we are getting enough food to actually grow on the back of that stimulation, if that makes sense. So training intensity is number one. Then it comes down to nutrition. Are we feeding our body with the right foods to make sure that we are growing? You know, it's not 80-20 training nutrition. They're all equally as important. You know, one cannot happen without the other. So make sure that you're getting the right foods, and I'm going to explain that in a second. And the last piece of the puzzle, which not many people talk about, is rest and recovery. Now remember how muscle growth actually works. You go to the gym, you stimulate growth, you break down muscle fibers, you tear them apart, and therefore, in order to lift more weight, they must grow back stronger so you can push more. And as a result, muscle growth tends to occur. Now, that only happens if you actually give yourself a time to recover, which is why rest and recovery is so important, why sleep is so important, yet we all neglect it because we all want to train as much as possible. But understand that focusing on one output, training part of things, and not actually allowing the recovery slows things down. You're essentially just not getting where you want to be. You're getting nowhere fast because you're never allowing for that recovery. If you were getting the balance of both, you would get to your goal a lot quicker. So our goal is to master these three. And if you can get that formula absolutely right, and you test this with your body, you work out what works well for you, it's impossible to not keep growing muscle. You would physically keep getting stronger, and as a result, you would have to grow muscle. Your cross-sectional area of muscles would have to compensate to keep up. So learn this, understand the formula, and let me explain a little bit more detail on each part. So let's obviously start with training intensity, right? So what does our training intensity need to look like? It's the first piece of the puzzle. Our goal is to stimulate enough growth. Now, the reason why people get beginner gains, where they feel like they're on steroids and they see loads of results, is because they can stimulate a fair amount of growth instantly because their body is not used to that stress. It becomes harder later down the line because your body is used to it. Therefore, you need to keep upping the intensity. So one main factor that you need to focus on is keeping the sessions intense, making sure that the intensity keeps rising every week. It doesn't have to be weight specifically. It needs to be more reps, more sets, more volume, more weight, whatever it is. You just need to keep getting better. That's why I love the gym. Even if you have a shit day, as long as you keep getting stronger, you keep getting better because you grow more muscle, right? You're constantly chipping away, ticking the boxes and pushing every single day. If you do that and you track that, so what I would recommend is using an app. You know, it just eliminates the thinking. If you don't track, you shoot yourself in the foot because you're going to forget some days. We're not all perfect. We don't have photographic memories. So, you know, do yourself a favor and make it really easy. Eliminate the thinking aspect by tracking everything on an app, and then only use your brain to focus on intensity and stimulate as much growth as possible. If you do that, you have a record of where you are and you can keep pushing the limits every week. Therefore, you will keep growing stronger. And if you keep growing stronger, you will grow more muscle. That's it. So our goal is to increase intensity every single week with the correct form. Now, if we're growing muscle, we need to be training like a bodybuilder, in which case time under tension matters. We need to be focusing on negative contraction. So let's say we're doing a bench press, you know, we're not just rushing it like a power lifter, trying to push as much weight. Yes, weight is important, but it's how you move the weight. The goal is to make the lightest weight as heavy as possible. The way we do that is finding our foundation with the correct form of an exercise, and once we have 100% form, we then push the limits after. And the way you do that is just by simply controlling the weight. You know, fuck the weight, don't let it fuck you. Move the weight in a way where you're actually controlling the negative, because this part here, the eccentric, is where you grow the muscle. If we look at it from a chest perspective, if you're doing this really, really slowly, you're allowing to stretch those muscle fibers. If you're doing this, it's not really stretching it, because they're just going back and forth and momentum's doing the work. So our goal is to really control every single part of the movement and do that with a slow tempo. Once you get that down, then you start to increase the weight, and over time you'll keep getting stronger. A lot of guys, what they do is they find that they hit plateaus because their form is not right, and then they drop form, and then they keep going backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards trying to correct the form. Just get it down once and then you'll have it, and then keep reflecting. So track every single lift and push your limits. Now, at the start, like I said, you don't have to train as hard as you think, but eventually there will come a point where you need to really, really hone in your training intensity. And what you want to do is train like a beast. And the way you do that is by training to failure. Take the last set and push it to failure. Because if you do that, if you go to somewhere where you have not been before and you push the limits and you really, really train hard, then you will find it very easy to grow muscle consistently, because you are doing things that you haven't done. And if you are able to do them on a weekly basis, then you are getting stronger, if that makes sense. I don't understand why you wouldn't train to failure, because if you can do more, why not do more? Isn't our goal to gain as much muscle? So I understand why people keep reps in reserve, maybe so you can train for a longer period of time. But in my opinion, it's much better to train as intense as possible, take the rest you need, which we'll talk about in a second, and then keep doing like that. So focus on training like a beast. Really good way of thinking about it is, imagine you go for a run, all right? When we go for a 5K, it's hard. You know, you're sweating, you feel out of breath, you almost feel like you're going to be sick. Audit your training sessions compared to that. Do they ever feel like that? No. Because I see people in the gym who go on their phone during like leg extensions and shit, whereas there's me just fucking about to pass out. So make sure that you're sweating when your gym sessions, you're making it really, really hard, because if you're not finding it really, really hard, then you're doing something wrong. You could be doing more. And if you want better results, you know, don't be complaining about the work you didn't put in. Push the limits, 100% every single session. So that's training intensity down. Now, next is nutrition. So once we stimulate enough growth, we need the nutrients to facilitate said growth. This often comes in a surplus of calories. So when you're starting out, if you want to maximize growth, you need a calorie surplus, a bulk. And you want about 300 to 500 calories more. So there's a scientific fact, I'm pretty sure, that you need around 250 calories to facilitate muscle growth. That's about as much as you need. So we need 300 to 500 to mitigate any fuck ups, maybe burn a little bit more on steps or whatever. So that's about it. We're almost overestimating with 500. You don't need more. If you have more, you're just going to gain fat, and then it's going to create this whole reverse effect where you have to cut the fat, and then like I said, it's not the best way to be growing muscle because you want to be in a surplus. So your goal is to keep it lean and stay in that surplus for as long as possible, because you'll be able to keep upping weight on the bar, and as a result, you get stronger quicker. So work out how many calories you need to maintain your current weight, add that accordingly, and you should consistently gain weight and be gaining that through muscle. So that's how you want to run your calories. Now, you've got your training intensity down, you've got your nutrition down. Make sure that your nutrition is sorted in the macro perspective. So carbs and fat, you can do whatever the fuck you want. Honestly, it doesn't matter. I would say keep the carbs fairly high, just to make sure that your body produces enough glycogen, because that way you can have more energy to lift. If you're just focusing on fats, you're not going to have as much energy, so focus on carbs. But the most important metric is protein, right? You need protein to restore muscle. You need protein to help the whole synthesis and the whole growth stimulation. Therefore, make sure that you're keeping protein high. That's why protein and calories are the most important when it comes to nutrition. Carbs and fat, do whatever you want. The next piece of the puzzle is keeping the food clean, whole, and natural. Once you're having a lot of sugar and processed foods, it kind of destroys certain systems in your body. It doesn't operate at the best level, and you want it to operate at the best level so you can grow as much muscle. Eat the best and you will look and feel the best. If you start eating loads of processed shit, you're not going to feel great. It's also going to reduce your testosterone, which makes this whole process a lot harder. So keep the food clean, whole, and natural. I understand that processed foods are convenient. For example, you might have chicken slices that you can easily put into a bagel. Go the extra mile if you want to look the best. That's as simple as it is. It's not the end of the world, but your gains will be significantly slower if you are eating those processed foods. So just try and, keep everything clean. You'll feel better for it, and it's not that hard. It just takes a little bit of preparation. So make sure you're doing that. Then you'll have nutrition down. If you've got training down, you've got nutrition down, you've got two pieces out of the puzzle. So that's kind of the whole sort of food eating aspect. Now let's talk about rest and recovery, which is probably one of the most fundamental. Rest and recovery, right? So you can only grow what you recover from. Remember what I said at the start. You break down the muscle fibers, once they're broken, they then need to repair stronger. Now, when do they repair? First of all, in your sleep. So you not getting 8 hours of sleep is putting yourself at a disadvantage. Sleep is a literal steroid. There are studies that genuinely show the best steroid you could take is sleep. People who take steroids and do not sleep will find it harder to grow. That's as simple as it is. So make sure that you are using everything you have to your advantage, and that is sleep, because that's the only time when we actually grow muscle. It's in deep sleep part, which makes up around 20% of your sleep. So if you're getting 6 hours and you're only getting 20% of 6 hours, you're getting significantly less as the person who's getting 20% of 8 hours. This adds up on a daily basis. So make sure you're getting enough sleep. Deep sleep is really important. Track this using an Apple Watch and understand how your body works. There's a sleep video I've posted that will really help with this, but that's really, really important. Now, that's your kind of recovery sort of style, which you need to focus on. The next is how you actually organise your split. So what I'd recommend is, if you're going to be training 100%, for every 2 days you train, take 1 day off. That's what I do. You can push 3 days, especially at the start, but you want to listen to your body. You want to get into the habit of taking more rest as opposed to training more. If you want the fastest results, you can keep pushing the training, but just remember, you can only grow what you recover from. So why not just maximise the chance of being recovered? You'll learn by doing that. It might suck at first, and you might think, oh no, I'm leaving gains on the table, but you'll realise you get stronger much quicker, and you realise that actually was the play which I should have been focusing on. Take some balls, take some risks to train less, but if you really want the best results, try it, see what happens. I did it, changed my style of training to 3 to 4 days a week, and I outlived a lot of my friends who train 6 days a week, because it's about working hard and smart. You know, don't just try and be the smart guy working smart and not hard. I make sure for the 4 days I do train, I fucking go all in. But as opposed to going, 60, 70% for 6 days, I'm going 100% for 4. If you work out the maths, that works out a little bit better. So that's what I'd recommend in terms of actual training. Now, if you are operating at 100%, think about it. It's not just exponential, otherwise we'd all be massive. You need to take deload weeks. So what I notice is, by pushing the limits and really training to failure, especially on the latter stages of training, every 2 to 3 months, 10 weeks in, I notice that progress hits a standstill. My muscles actually find it really hard to contract and keep improving. It's because your CNS is fried, your central nervous system. So you sometimes need to give it a break. You take 1 step back, you take 2 steps forward. You'll notice because you become ill as well. It's actually what's happening to me right now. I've pushed the limits. I took 1 more week than I should have. I couldn't really lift more, and my body's just fucked because I've been training so hard these last 10 weeks. So learn that that's what you need to do. You need to listen to your body. Try not to train 6 days a week. 4 often gets far better results. Experiment with this. Listen to your body. Don't just listen to what I say. The studies, work out what works best for you, and understand the more you rest, the more you grow. There's a good theory that I always use: slicing your hand. So let's say we got a knife and we accidentally cut our hand. You would want your hand to heal as quick as possible, right? So you would put a plaster on it and you would let it heal. If you were to take that plaster off and keep using your hand, what would happen? It would get infected and it would take a long time to heal. It might just take 5 days to heal, right? If you just leave the plaster on. But if you want to rush it and you keep trying to train with the hand every 2 days, it will probably take 2 weeks because the infection will come in and it will take time to recover. And then you just being impatient wasted 2 weeks. But imagine that's with your training, and you're just trying to rush every single training session and you're not allowing for the recovery. And as a result, something that would have taken you 5 days then takes you 2 weeks, but then you do this consistently and then you wonder where your gains are going. And that's why. It's because you're not actually allowing for the recovery. So it's a good theory to use. Understand you can only grow what you recover from. You only recover in your sleep. So optimize both processes and your life will become easier. That's it. Stimulate enough growth. How do you do that? Train as hard as possible. Feed your body with the right foods. How do you do that? Eat enough of the right foods, 300 to 500 surplus, and make sure it's really clean. So you have the hormonal balance, you're feeling good, the processes in your body are working at its finest. And finally, rest and recovery. You're actually allowed to rest and recover, which means you can therefore grow muscle at a quicker rate. Those are the 3 fundamentals. Now there's one more, which we're going to talk about, right? And it goes off a little bit off topic, but it does massively help. It's testosterone. There's a fact. If you have high testosterone, you will produce more lean muscle. Therefore, it's in your interest to have the highest levels of testosterone. It's why if we go on TikTok now, all the 15-year-old and 16-year-olds who have access to all this information get stronger much quicker. The reason why is because when I was training, I didn't have this information. I didn't really know what I was doing. Therefore, I didn't benefit from the younger years when I had the highest testosterone levels, because as you get older, it starts to reduce. That's why we see people 14, 15 who are fucking massive, because they know what to do, they know how to eat, they've been watching my videos maybe, they know how to train, and therefore they just grow fucking quick. So it's in your interest to keep your testosterone high. That's why all the young lads are fucking jacked. So make sure you really keep them high. And the way we do this, right, is supplement vitamin D3. The world is deficient in it. There's a lot of lack of sun in the UK. For those in sunnier climates, you're going to have high levels, but it's always in your interest to supplement it as well. Again, sleep. It's been proven that once you get 6 hours sleep, you lose about 50% of your free testosterone levels. So make sure that you're putting yourself at the best advantage by getting 8.5 hours, 8 to 9 hours every single day. Alcohol destroys your testosterone. I've tested this after coming out of university. I had the lowest testosterone levels I've ever had. Why? I drank a lot of alcohol. So ideally, don't drink any or reduce it heavily. Otherwise, you'll see a decline in muscle growth. If you're drinking alcohol, there's going to be times when you're hungover. You're not going to get quality sleep. Therefore, your muscle don't grow. Delays protein synthesis. It's not good for you. So that's that. Next is red meat and eggs. Red meat is unbelievable. You can eat it every single day. Ignore what anyone says. It's really good for you. Carries a lot of high healthy fats, so you can use that to your advantage, and that produces cholesterol, which helps you produce testosterone. Very, very important. No processed foods, destroys testosterone, fucks up the systems in your body. Keep it all clean and natural. Single ingredient. Shout Eddie Abbey, he knows. And then lift heavy. There's a correlation between lifting heavy and stimulating muscle growth. There's also a supplement I'm taking at the moment, Tonkat Ali, Fedosia agrestis. Just experimenting with that, but something you can look into. Andrew Huberman talks about it quite a lot. But yeah, if you can get those through, that formula, throw it in with some fucking increased testosterone, you're basically on steroids. That's exactly what it is. Remember, when people inject test, they're just injecting testosterone. So why don't you make it, in your interest to get as much testosterone as natural as possible? And then you might be at some of the level of these guys who don't even fucking have the foundations in place but still take steroids. You see what I mean? That's why it's really important. So, in summary, intensity, nutrition, diet, get all three of those right, you're sorted. That's the formula. That's the anabolic formula to growing as much fucking muscle as possible. If you can get that right, you're winning. I never knew this. I got intensity right, I pushed it, and then I stopped pushing it, so I had to redo intensity. Nutrition, I fairly had. I put intensity, nutrition, diet. What am I doing? Rest and recovery. Rest and recovery is the bit I didn't have. I was training all the time because I thought more. More is better, but it's not. So if you can be mature enough and keep an open mind and understand that rest and recovery is where you're going wrong, and you get that formula, sorry about that, you will grow a lot of fucking muscle. And if you increase your testosterone as well by doing some of those things, you got the anabolic formula, man. So that's my kind of guide on how to grow as much muscle as possible. If you do this, you're going to be in fucking killer shape, especially if you're younger. If you're younger and you're doing this now, you're going to be crazy. But if you're a little bit older, focus on increasing your testosterone and you'll still benefit from those gains. There is no ceiling. Ignore what people say about fucking genetics. You can outwork genetics. You can outtrain them. Keep pushing it. Yes, you might get dealt a bit of a worse hand, but you can still keep building muscle as long as you keep getting stronger. So just keep getting stronger, keep your intensity high, keep training, nutrition, rest, all of that, and you'll be sorted. Last thing I want to say, if you still need help, if you actually are struggling and you want that guidance, you want that accountability, the link in the bio has my application there. I'm taking 2 more clients on for March. A lot of them went through Instagram, but for anyone who's watching YouTube and wants that extra push, wants my fucking great wisdom and to work with me on a one-to-one basis, I'm taking 2 people in for my March coaching intake. So we'll be working from March until summer, getting you in the best shape of your life. Apply below if you're interested. If you're not, keep watching my content. Who cares? Don't worry too much. But if you are serious and you actually really want to improve it, this is for you, man. So let's fucking get it. That's today's video. I think this is a really good one, and I think a lot of people struggle with this. So I hope that was useful. And if anyone really does get something from this, resonates from it, and makes a lot of progress, please do fucking send me a message. I want to see application of this in the real world. That's why I started coaching in the first place. I'm applying all the knowledge I've learned, and I'm seeing a lot of results with my own training and my clients. So it'd be great to see as many people in the world who are watching these videos do the same thing. So yeah, today's video over and out. Catch you in a bit.